All right, welcome to the Bowling University studio in the International Bowling Campus here in Arlington, Texas. I'm Bart Berger, and I'll be your host for this edition of the Bowling University Profit Break. Thank you for joining us. Our mission here at the university is to enrich people's lives personally and professionally, and the Profit Break is an opportunity for sharing insights on how to grow revenue, reduce costs, enrich yourself, your team, and your business. If you're joining the Profit Break for the first time, welcome. We're glad you're here. Give us 15 minutes and you'll be on your way to improving your profitability. Today, we're joined by employee engagement and positive psychology expert, Mr. Paul Krismer. Paul has over 25 years' experience as an executive leader with large teams. In 2012, Paul began his work as a certified executive coach, and then in 2016, he founded, which I think is the coolest name ever for a company, the Happiness Experts Company. He is the best-selling author of Whole Person Happiness. He speaks all around the world, and he's carved out a few minutes today for all of you. So, Paul, thank you for being with us today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you, Bart.
Great. Well, I know you're going to be joining us in Las Vegas, and we're looking forward to that. But let's dive in today a little bit. Look, if ever we needed to talk about this topic, it's today with all that we're going through. It's a relevant topic anytime. But let's start with the gorilla in the room. It's something that is often easy to understand, but it's hard to verbalize. So help us understand, what is happiness even?
That's a great question. You know, the truth is, in today's times where happiness is kind of in vogue, it's a popular concept, we may think that it's this kind of grinning from ear to ear and joyfully skipping through the meadow with buttercups all around you and that kind of stuff. And most of us, most of the time, aren't feeling that kind of happiness. So happiness has got to be something more than just that grinning like a crazy fool. And the science often isn't very helpful either, because a lot of scientists define happiness as subjective well-being, which maybe is accurate, but not very helpful. So the one avenue I think that we can explore happiness from is to see it as an umbrella term, a term that might have multiple different emotions associated with it, and any one of those emotions is a form of happiness. So for example, joy is a type of happiness. So is gratitude and serenity and curiosity, which is an interesting one, because if you were to look at me while I'm reading a good book, you might not think I look happy, but if you interrupted me and said, "Hey Paul, what are you reading?" my face might light up, but I'd be all excited and I'd tell you what this curious thing has captured my interest. Hope is another example. Pride, inspiration, amusement, that kind of slack jaw feeling of awe when you just look at something gorgeous, and usually it's in nature, but it defies words. And then of course love is a form of happiness too. And any one of those words can fall under that broad umbrella term of happiness.
Yeah, I like that, Paul. Thank you. You've given us stuff to think about that goes much broader than just what we often comes to top of mind about happiness. Now, look, certainly there are a lot of benefits to happiness, and obviously, you know, we think about feeling good, but are there other things that relate to those benefits of if we choose to get into some of those other definitions that you shared with us?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And this is the really interesting thing that I think the last 10 to 20 years of research has kind of convincingly proven, is that the presence of positive emotions, the experience of happiness, leads to more success in life. And that may seem kind of too casual of a comment to throw out without substantiating it, but the research is very, very clear. People get more career and income success when they have a lot of happiness. Their health is better. They actually live longer. Their relationships are better. Bizarrely, Bart, you actually are smarter when you're in a happy mood. Like, you actually do better on logic tests and access to short and long-term memory, creativity tests. And even now it gets downright supernatural. We actually get bigger, wider peripheral vision when we're happy. And I could go on and on about these kinds of very objective measures that we'd all agree lead to more success in life that occur as a result of being in a positive, happy state. And of course, and for your audience, I would encourage people to also consider that happy individuals make up a happy business. So the more individuals we have in our business that are feeling states of positive emotions, the more success we'll get in our business.
Yeah, I know, and there's some credible science behind that. I know you're going to dig deeper when you spend some time with us in Las Vegas. But let's talk a little bit about relationships, right? Because relationships can broaden between those at work and those in our personal. How important are good relationships tied into happiness?
It's such an interesting and complicated question, but there's a lot of happiness interventions that we could teach that are kind of techniquey. And yet the one that's vital for success in relationships is not very techniquey. We have to be very sincere and true to who we really are. And the other interesting thing about it is that we're not successful, at least in a few relationships in our lives, almost all the other techniques I could teach about happiness have very little effect. So the primacy, the importance of a few people in our lives that love us and we love them back is absolutely critical. And when we have that, it's a base of power to get a lot more in our life on many other categories that we would all see as important.
Yeah. So you talk a little bit in your book about handwriting and how that plays into happiness and relationships. So can you give us a little peek into that?
Well, I think what you're referring to is the hardwiring in our brains. And there's no doubt about it that we are programmed as a species through hundreds of thousands of years of evolution to be incredibly connected to small, what I'm using as the term is tribal communities. To succeed as an individual human member, we had to get along in teams that often had lots of mutual interest, including passing on our genetic heritage. And so humans have this incredibly tight and important wiring intended to read social cues from other people. There's even something called emotional contagion, which is this very weird but true concept that the emotions that another person expresses show up on my face almost instantly before I'm even cognitively aware of it. So if somebody's fearful and says, oh my goodness, there's something going on, I don't stop and question them and get into a line of inquiry. I immediately feel their emotion and express it on my own face. That happens in less than 33 1,000ths of a second. So it's split seconds. That's how emotionally connected we humans are. It's something called mirror neurons, and we're a unique, or one of very few unique species on Earth that have this capacity to instantly be in touch with other people's emotions, which from a practical point of view, in our workplaces, in our lives of communities, and in our homes, it tells you how incredibly important it is that we show up with our best selves when it's sincere and something we can muster, so that other people are experiencing the positivity we can give to them. And by contrast, people who have a lot of negative emotions, we need to be cautious about, because even though we might think we're kind of insulated from their emotions, the truth is we pick up on it way more than we admit to consciously.
Yes, Paul, and I apologize. I did mean hardwiring. I caught the happiness break there from, I was thinking about my awesome wife and her joy she gets out of handwriting, and all the letters she writes, and still to this day is one that believes in writing those letters there. So you caught me in my own moment there. So speaking of relationships and children, let's switch a little bit about, how does this play in the personal space, in this environment today? How do we even think about raising happy kids?
It's challenging. There's all kinds of barriers to kids being happy. And I don't think we have time to go into all the perils of social media, which is a really tough environment for our youth of today that didn't exist when Bart, when you and I were growing up. We weren't doom scrolling, as they sometimes say in various social media. But kids are very malleable, especially the younger they are. So, a little bit of advice is to do what basically cognitive behavioral therapists do with adults, which is to kind of question our negative beliefs and help us get perspective on our lives. Well, kids can do that very instantly and not feel manipulated. So if your 4-year-old says something like, I never get dessert, rather than, confronting them with a factual argument, it's better to just question their belief and say, well, that's interesting. Do you ever get dessert? And the 4-year-old won't recognize that you're manipulating them, but they'll sit there and pause and they'll realize, the answer is yes, I do sometimes get dessert. Or they'll say, Mom, I'm terrible at math. I'm going to fail in school. And say, well, have you had some success in math in the past? And the kid, if it's true, will accurately reflect that they have done some well on some quizzes and tests. And questioning all these kind of pervasive, very personal views that we sometimes have, and little children can be susceptible to it too, just causing them to think can reverse it. Whereas arguing with them and trying to win the point is almost never going to be helpful, even with little 4-year-olds who will just stubbornly get in hard on their views. But to ask the question is the thing where they see for themselves the truth of the matter.
Yeah, Paul, I feel like at this stage of my life, some of my grandchildren have started to use that reverse psychology against me. So I thank you for those tips next time going to battle there. So you're going to be with us, as I mentioned, at Bowl Expo in June. You're going to share a lot of tips with the folks in your more detailed session with us. But for today, those that are joining our viewers, give them a little preview. Can you share a couple of the tips that you're going to be talking about? I know you spend some time talking about exercise and nutrition, maybe that and a couple others that for our folks joining us today.
Well, I'll tell you, in June, when I'm there with your people, your members, we're going to talk really in depth about the positive psychology science, some basic ways that we can wire the brain, and then some ways we can really use this in our businesses. But kind of today, maybe just for kind of loose and easy conversation, one of the big things is mindfulness. And there's a huge popularity to the whole mindfulness craze right now, and there's some really good reasons for it. The science is profound. The more we can be in relationship with our own thoughts and emotions and see them as with a little bit of separation and have some perspective on them, the more happy we will be. Because the degree to which we believe a passing thought about, oh my goodness, it's a disaster that such and such is happening, or oh my, I'm so angry, or I'm so sad, and the degree to which we believe that and see it as true and who I really am, well, that can be devastating. And when we have a little bit of perspective, of course, we know that one thought changes to another thought, to another thought, to another thought. We're a river of thoughts. Similarly, we're a river of emotions, that I'm mad at this moment and happy the next moment and content at the next moment and curious the moment after that. And believing any one state at any one given time is problematic. But unless we have some mindfulness and can kind of see our emotions and our thoughts is a little bit separate from who we really are, we don't have much capacity or opportunity to be happy. And then maybe another tip I can mention briefly, Bart, is that we're designed to work in our strengths, that when we're working in places where we get in the zone or in a state of flow, we tend to be happier. And so most of us, most of the time, find getting in the zone easier when we're working with things that we're strong at. And this probably makes intuitive sense to you. If I was a really poor bowler, I might come out there and I might be having fun, but I'd be really struggling to be outside of my thoughts. I'd be going, oh, how do I get the right kind of arm backswing, and how do I step just right? And I'd be really into my thoughts. Hard to be happy when you're really there. But on the other hand, if I'm really enjoying a conversation with somebody and this conversation with somebody is important to me and I'm in a state of flow, in the zone with it, only after the conversation's over do I go, oh, hey, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. And that's what flow experiences are like, things that we can naturally get into, feel our own set of strengths and kind of a sense of mastery over the task. And when we're doing that, we can't help but be happy.
Yeah, that's great stuff to Let's finish with this, Paul. I want to talk about something that we could all use a little bit more of, and that's gratitude. How does gratitude play into happiness and as we wrap up our time here today?
The science is so good on this one. It's a matter of framing our perspective on life. If I believe that the world is kind of a cruel, hard place, that I'm going to be dog eat dog all the time, I will probably see the things in life that affirm that set of beliefs. Whereas if I have a practice of gratitude, it starts training my mind to look for things that are good in my life. And I'm not saying that people should become silly about it and somehow try to pretend everything's great when it's not, but on a very practical and realistic level. Oh, this thing went well today, that thing went well, Bart was a good interviewer, the technology worked fine, all those kind of things that are just true, but most of the time we take them for granted. The more we can bring awareness to it, the higher our spirits will get, and we'll also have a more realistic perspective on our lives rather than focusing too much on the negative stuff that does happen but doesn't outweigh a lot of the positive things that are happening all the time.
Well, thank you. That's some great stuff. And in gratitude, I am grateful for you today, Paul. I'm grateful that you carved out some time out of your busy schedule. And we are so looking forward to having you there so you could really, really unpack this for all of our folks that'll be with you in June. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Good. Well, hey, folks, remember, if you'd like to learn even more about the science of positive psychology, Paul will be one of our featured speakers at Bowl Expo in Las Vegas in June. Paul's 90-minute learning lab, The Serious Business of Positive Emotions, Proven Tools to Achieve Personal and Professional Growth, will take place on Tuesday, June 28th at 10:15 a.m., and I can assure you, you're not going to want to miss it. As we wrap up another edition of the Bowling University Profit Break, remember that when your focus is on growing people, People will grow your business. We look forward to seeing you next time for another great episode. If you have any questions about today's show or would like additional information, you can reach us anytime at education@bpaa.com. Also, you and your team can watch any of our previous episodes 24/7 by visiting bowlinuniversity.net. The Profit Break is now available when you want it, and we have new episodes premiering every month. Until then, I'm Bart Berger, and remember, do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. We'll see you next time.